Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the female solution.
Hello, and welcome again to On the Case. I'm telling you, everything is going upside down in America, and it's all because of Donald J. Trump. He is out to get revenge. He is making America lose its allies. I don't know what we can do. No, yes, I do know what we can do. I believe in my heart and soul that we can make a difference. We can be the shift that will that will end this nightmare. And it is a nightmare. It is an attack on our democracy, and I believe we can make a difference. So we'll be right back with more of On the Case right after this.
We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network called 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you.
And we're back. I'm Chinta Strasberg, producer and host of On the Case. My very special guest is Attorney Brendan Shiller. He is the son of former Alderman Helen Shiller. She's an icon, and now her son is walking in her footsteps, making a difference. Welcome to On the Case.
Thank you, Chinta. How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm just kind of disturbed about your president, Donald J. Trump, and what he's doing to America. How do you assess his behavior in office?
I assess his behavior as somebody who fully embraces the constructs of white supremacy and patriarchy, and sees no reason why he should hide his id or his desires and those of his supporters, and is unlike his first term, is leaning in and owning every bit of the things he wants to accomplish.
But many of the things, or most of the things rather, he has done are illegal. And I don't know how he can still get away with doing this.
Well, I think it's been obvious for a very long time that law is not actually about rules, but it's about power. So he fully recognizes how to exploit and implement extrajudicial power. And he recognizes that law is mostly about power, not rules. So saying it's illegal is kind of oxymoronic until people are willing to enforce their power.
But that is up to the judges, the court, right? The court has told him that the ICE agents are not supposed to wear the mask, and they're wearing masks.
Courts don't have any armies, as far as I know. There's no judges with standing armies or military or law enforcement and people with guns. So the court's power is limited to the power that the people grant them. So I think law is as much about power as it is about rules.
So how do we stop this?
I think you're right. I think there's been, in your opening, there's a lot of hopeful signs. You need both, clear majority of people seeing what's morally right and what's morally best for themselves as well as society. But then you also need activity, either by a clear majority of people or by a substantial minority who's willing to act in concerted, strategic, and aggressive ways. And I think we're seeing signs of both of those things. And it just has to continue.
Well, what do you think about his threat to take over Greenland?
I actually think it's probably more likely than not that before his term is over, the U.S. will have ownership of Greenland. Whether that continues after his term, I'm not sure. But the reality is what Stephen Miller said is true. If the U.S. Army, if the U.S. military says, if this president says we're going to use the U.S. military and Europe's not going to want to fight it, it's true. And I think you combine that with his willingness to basically try to figure out a way to use other threats, other carrots, and other sticks, including just money, to persuade both Europe and Greenland itself. I think it's actually probably more likely than not that that Greenland ends up a territory of the U.S. in the next couple of years.
All right. So you mentioned money. The president, I shouldn't call him president, Donald J. Trump, is making a lot of money in different ways. He's selling Bibles, trinkets, all kinds of stuff. He accepted a $400 billion jet from Qatar. I mean, what's up with this, and how can he get away with it? It's against the law to do that.
Oh no, the grift is much, much broader and deeper than that, right? He created meme coins on both for cryptocurrency, but even non-cryptocurrency, in which people are just dumping in tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for various purposes, pardons and other purposes. He has a handful of operatives moving around throughout both Europe, South Asia, the Middle East, getting all sorts of things to their family in return for various other decisions that he makes. So the pardon grift is strong. The bribes via the cryptocurrency is strong. He took $50 million. It appears, it set up a slush fund from the oil he stole from Venezuela. That the oil he used the U.S. military to steal from Venezuela, he set up his own personal overseas slush fund. It sounds like I don't know if it's his personal or the government, but it's definitely outside the bounds of congressional oversight and control or any other oversight and control. I think he's probably going to leave office worth tens to 20s of billions of dollars and guarantee that all of his children and their children's children, their children's children are billionaires for a long time to come.
I don't think he's going to finish his term.
I think the only thing that prevents him from finishing his term is health. I don't think that there is the political will. I could be wrong. A lot could happen a ton could happen over the next 8-9 months. A bunch of more people, there's going to be a bunch more tragedies. And those tragedies could theoretically lead to a landslide victory of unprecedented heights. There's a path. You could see a 10, 15, 20% path where a sufficient number of tragedies and a truly unabashed Trump and Stephen Miller and Vought could theoretically lead to like 60 U.S. Senate seats. Like they actually somehow grab the seat in Mississippi and Kansas But that's really unlikely. And absent that, regardless of how many House members they have, regardless of how many impeachments they have, they're never going to secure a conviction in the Senate. And so the only way he doesn't serve out his term is health or assassination, I guess. So I think there's definitely health concerns and mental health concerns. So it's possible he doesn't serve out his term, but I think the more likely scenario is he serves it out for 3 years, and he's hamstrung a little bit the last 2 years because of Congress, but he's really not that hamstrung because he doesn't throw a whole lot through Congress now. And he just continues to do what he's doing, which is using the very much expanded powers that the Supreme Court has granted him of the unitary executive to wreak havoc both domestically and abroad.
So what do you think about the Supreme Court giving him immunity for everything that he does as long as he's in office? That's unheard of. I think it's illegal.
Well, again, legal is about power. Legality is about power. And it's not exactly that broad. It's nearly that broad. And there's definitely that immunity ruling has definitely emboldened him in some of his actions. It's not entirely that broad because there is this threshold under the Supreme Court ruling. It has to at least somewhat plausibly have some type of fig leaf having to do with the recognized authority and powers he has, which almost everything we're talking about does. But he could not, for instance, just go randomly rape or murder a citizen and still have that immunity. But the immunity does basically cover all of the conduct we're talking about. And I think he knows that and is acting like that.
Well, do you remember before he was elected, he said he could kill somebody in New York City and get away with it?
On Fifth Avenue, sure. Now it's probably Fifth Avenue, 7th Avenue, 42nd Street. There's a lot of places he could probably kill somebody and get away with. It's not just Fifth Avenue.
Well, what do you think about his revenge? He's just riddled with revenge. I mean, he's reaping it.
I think that's actually been helpful to the movement. And here's why. Because he's focused on a bunch of folks who can handle it and who I really don't care that much about. And it makes him look less interested in helping his supporters. So if he keeps going after James Comey and Letitia James, that's time and energy and resources that he's not spending using the full force of government to go after much more vulnerable people or people, frankly, who are doing better things for the community. I'd much rather have him targeting James Comey and Letitia James than the activists who are still working in these cities and communities for police accountability or better housing or better healthcare. I'd much rather him go after James Comey and Letitia James than some of the remaining progressive prosecutors like Larry Krasner. He has the full resources of the federal government. He could be targeting Brandon Johnson and other progressive mayors. So I don't mind the fact that he's so hung up on his own really kind of simpleton grievances and grudges that's where he ends up expending some of the power of the federal government. Keep doing it.
Some people believe that he has dementia. Do you?
No, I don't think he has dementia. I think he's probably slowed down a little bit. I think he is an aging person, and like all aging people, you begin to lack a little bit of the discipline in terms of your thought and focus. But he is who he is. He is who he's always been. There's a lot of id there.
Yeah, but we've never had a president so intense on getting money. That's all he wants. That's why he goes after these countries, because he wants the minerals and every things that will give him money. That's illegal.
So I don't know if we've never had a president that's that intent. We've never had a president who is so uninhibited, that he's willing to act on most of his intents. There may have been presidents who had the same intents and same desires, even maybe even stronger desires, but it takes a certain unique chemical and mental makeup to be as uninhibited in general as Trump is, and that's what makes the execution of his desires seem so unusual.
All right, we're gonna take a break. We'll be back with more with Attorney Brendan Shiller right after this.
Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair.
Hey family, this is Charles Humphrey of MCH Publishing, and I'm here with Ashada, and we at the Soulful Chicago Book what?
This is the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair, slamming.
We getting down in Hyde Park. Just run it down, my sister. Just tell us, for the people, a little bit about what we're doing here today and why.
You know, this is the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair, and this month is very important. I feel like we don't give it the type of recognition that it needs, but beyond that, I do all things literary, and we have so many ancestors that have taken a tradition of writing and done great things. Well, we have those of us that are carrying on that tradition, and nobody knows about them until now. So the Soulful Chicago Black History Book Fair is allowing us to tell our stories according to ourselves for our own benefit. And it's just beautiful. I mean, she could have been here today if you wasn't here. But if you were, it's been amazing. People came in consistently, children, and we have children's authors. We have nonfiction authors. We have fiction authors. This is really good. And it's about taking our own power in our own hands and doing what we do on the literary tip, though.
Right.
I got to work, but I can't help it. Everything going to school. Not just about bring my African shit like this. Bring in the African shit.
We're back. I'm Chinta Strasberg, producer and host of On the Case. My very special guest is Attorney Brendan Shiller. Thank you again for being on the case.
I got a very and two specials. Nice. Thank you.
I wish you were president.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not.
Well, what do you think about this Stephen Miller? They say he really is the president.
I think that Stephen Miller is one of a handful of folks who have a lot of leeway to execute his ideological project. And his ideological project clearly is based in the belief that there is something clear and definable when it comes to race, which I'm not sure there is or ever was, and that based on whatever his understanding of the white race is, there's a need to shore up the percentage of the population that is white and to shore up what he believes is an American heritage based on whiteness, whatever that is in his mind. And that the immigration policy flows from that ideological project. And apparently, there's some intersection between Trump's general grift and self-dealing in terms of foreign policy that also somehow works in collaboration with Stephen Miller's ideological project and Marco Rubio's ideological project.
Stephen Miller has said that he doesn't like black people or brown people. How do you feel about that?
Did he actually say it like that?
Yes.
When did he say that? I mean, it's obvious, but when did he say it like that?
I don't remember, but he said it.
That's not a surprise.
Do we have a bunch of Nazis in the White House?
I don't think they're Nazis because Nazi is a specific term from a specific era, but we have a few authoritarians. We have some fascists. We have a ton of white supremacists. Yeah, that's obvious.
How do you feel about that?
I'm not sure what you're asking me how I feel about that.
We've never had that before.
Again, I'm not sure we've never had that before. That we've had a lot of that before, especially the white supremacy, right? For most of the country's history. So, what is so disheartening is, given that it comes in reaction to the first Black president, who was, a pretty moderate president, and that it is creating a lot of harm and unnecessary harm and harm that we probably could have avoided. And it is creating some harm that we may not be able to undo for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it's sad, it's frustrating, but it's not unprecedented. It's frustrating because we thought we had moved beyond some of it.
It's sad. That's what it is. It's very, very sad. And what do you think about the president giving the finger when the camera's on, cursing, using the F word?
Yeah, that's like number 7,296 on the list of my concerns. I don't know. That doesn't bother me.
That doesn't bother. What about the children?
I'd much rather not have children be separated from their parents in most blue cities right now. I'm just being honest. There's several thousand other things happening that seem more important.
Okay, so but I'm upset with that because it sends the wrong message to our children. It says it to the children. He's saying it's okay to use those dirty words. It's okay to be a racist. I mean, he's a very awful role model. I mean, he's not a role model, but he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think most presidents have considered themselves role models either. I don't know if I agree with that.
So he's certainly not a role model.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that.
So what do you think about his son starting this private club? I think it was called, I forget what it was called, but I think it was executive something or another, where you had to pay millions of dollars to become a member, a lot of money.
They've been very creative in their grift the second term. They have identified countless ways to extract as much money as possible from people who have money and those who don't, both in the country and throughout the world. It's very impressive, their creativity in terms of how they're corruptly using their power to extract as much revenue as possible.
But isn't that illegal to have a club like that where the general public certainly cannot join, and then the people with the money will have access to the president? I mean, isn't that it's wrong?
Yeah, it's wrong. Law is about power and authority and enforcement. And if you're asking me, is it federally illegal? There's been a lot of whittling down of the federal statutes that relate to, corruption and bribery and all that over the last 10, 15 years. Partly as an ideological project by the Supreme Court, but partly for other reasons as well. And so, just taking your question at face value, it is potentially federally illegal. I don't know, but the reality is there's a ton of stuff that's both potentially and is federally illegal that's not going to be prosecuted, not now, and very unlikely at any time in the future. So I don't mean to be flippant every time you raise whether something's illegal. I don't think that the primary question is whether something's legal or illegal right now. The primary question is whether something resonates sufficiently with enough people and enough people of means and power that it can result in a change of the circumstances. Legal and illegal is not the framework, I don't think, in terms of this moment.
Okay. And what do you think about the Venezuela and the president Trump has had him kidnapped and his wife? That surely could not be legal because isn't that a violation of international law?
So here's the funny thing is because they ended up just doing an incursion just to snatch him up, and they had a warrant. It's actually murky on the legality, and because it is mostly for what appears to be a very corrupt purpose, it actually may end up being more defensible both legally and politically than if it was for any of the if it was for any of the false reasons they were giving, right? If this had really been about drugs and they had gone on to sovereign territory just to try to get drug dealers, that would have been illegal. If he started a true war without congressional approval, that would have been illegal. This kind of weird situation where he made up a bunch of stuff and used a indictment on whether it's legit or not, who knows, on drugs as a fig leaf to go in and do a quick regime change, but then quickly withdraw his troops and cut a deal with the vice president so he could access oil as some type of multi-level grift, is actually fairly consistent with what the U.S. did do in Central and Latin America for 2.5 centuries, and potentially defensible legally. So I think it's terrible. I think what they did to the boats was illegal. I think the fact that they killed several dozen people in order to set up this false play was illegal and immoral. And I have very little confidence that they even knew who they were killing half the time. I think it was all part of the play to build this narrative to go in. But the actual going in and grabbing Maduro and then just turning the country over to his vice president, I'm not sure what law that violates. I think they violate a lot of other laws leading up to it, but I'm not sure what law that violates.
Well, isn't there a law against piracy?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The stuff they're doing with the oil tankers, the stuff they're doing with the boats, that was illegal. But what they did with Maduro, they've done a bunch more times. Like I said, Trump just does it in a more direct and crass way.
Well, to me, he speaks out of both sides of his mouth because didn't he pardon the former president of Honduras? And he had brought 400 tons of cocaine and convicted of bringing those drugs into America. I don't understand how he can pardon him and then arrest the current.
Yeah, it's entirely consistent with Trump's view that he uses the power of the U.S. and the U.S. courts and the U.S. military to cut deals that favor him or he believes favor the country. So I'm sure he extracted what he needed to extract out of the president he pardoned before he pardoned him, just like he has from all the other hundreds of people he's pardoned or thousands of people he's pardoned in return for whatever he received. And I'm sure he feels that consistent with that, he picked up Maduro so that he could get the same benefit from Maduro's country. In his mind, that's all very consistent.
In his mind. This man.
Yeah.
What is it? I'm sorry.
No, it's a consistent way to use power to extract benefit. It's all negotiation.
Yeah, mostly for him.
Sure.
So I don't understand how people still follow him. He's evil. He's a racist. What's up with that?
So, what was the W.E.B. Du Bois quote from about the psychic wages of white supremacy. Still to this day, a clear majority of white people will do themselves harm as long as they believe they are better people than the folks they're better than the folks who are beneath them. And Trump feeds that psychological need for what appears to continue to still be not a big majority, but a slight majority of white folks in this country.
That's really sad. We're going backwards. And how do you feel about his turning the civil rights clock backwards? He even has taken off erased the military records of African American heroes, military heroes, like my cousin Milton Lealo III, who was the first African American to receive the Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War. October 22nd, 1965, Skipper, as we called him, spotted a live grenade. He, 18 years old, he grabbed it, put it on his stomach, allowed it to explode. He saved the lives of 4 men. And today, they all have great-grandchildren. Only one is alive. That's retired Captain Stanford, Jimmy Stanford, who used to be a racist, by the way, until my cousin saved his life. How do you feel about his erasing Black history? And he won't put it back, by the way. I've been trying to get him to put it back. He won't put it back.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about two separate things here. One is the erasure of Black folks and Black history. The other is the tearing down of the legal infrastructure of civil rights. I think those are two distinct things. I actually think the first can be relatively can be fixed relatively quickly with the next president. The second, I think, requires us to be a little bit more creative and forward-looking. So this is what I mean by that. The things happening at museums and in schools, the erasure of Black folks and Black history, the erasure of other folks and movement history. I think that the next president, the next administration, if we do the things we're supposed to do over the next few years, I think we can rectify that. We can put all that stuff back in place.
If they haven't erased it, that's the problem. I'm like with the Epstein files. He does everything to keep that out of the media. What is he hiding?
Yeah, but before we jump to the Epstein files, let me make my second point, if I may. I think when it comes to, I think it's probably fairly clear that that the Supreme Court's gonna, I think it's likely that the Supreme Court is going to overturn the rest of the Voting Rights Act. I think there's a lot of structural protections that existed for 50, 60 years that are going to be gone. And I don't think those come back relatively easy. And I don't think it just has to do with voting. I think it has to do with civil rights vis-a-vis police misconduct, civil rights vis-a-vis employment and housing discrimination. I think those are much more structural things that are embedded because of who the Supreme Court is. And that's not changing. And what I think that requires is a kind of cold, calculated, honest, strategic reassessment from those of us in movement spaces, those of us in Black liberation spaces, those of us in class liberation spaces, to figure out how over a new strategy over the next 40, 50 years to protect people that isn't, you're not going to go back on that, right? So you may disagree. I think we can go back on the history books and the museums and the classrooms. I don't think it's a going back when it comes to structural protections for marginalized people. I think it's a going forward and figuring out new strategies, how to protect folks from those ills that come from those things. And I may be overly optimistic, but I think that Trump acting the way he is, and his sycophants acting the way he is, and his comrades, which is really what 40% of the country is, and really the people, the majority of Republicans now, both in the community and in the halls of power out, they're his comrades in their ideological project. I think what they're doing is laying bare, as Huey P. Newton used to say, the contradictions, and giving us an opportunity to maybe identify new ways forward in terms of protecting marginalized people. So I don't want to leave that out. I think there's more opportunity. Maybe there was some things whose time had come, and there's more opportunity here to figure out new ways forward. In terms of the Epstein files, I'm convinced at this point that he either saw something or did something, and that they're in the files. Because he's trying very, very hard. And as soon as Marjorie Taylor Greene left Congress and they felt that there wasn't enough votes to force another discharge petition on this, or to enforce the law, they stopped releasing files. They would release some files, then Marjorie Taylor Greene retires. They think there's not enough votes in Congress, and they just stop. They're just stonewalling again. It doesn't make much sense unless there's something in there showing he either participated in something, or he's covering up something, or he covered up something back then, or something.
Maybe he doesn't want Melania to see or find out about that.
I don't think he cares that much about her.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And there's such a coldness between them, and there have been screenshots where she yanked her hand from his hand. That is pretty sad. Pretty sad.
It doesn't make me sad, but okay, if you think it's sad.
No, I think it's sad because it sends the wrong message. Everything about him is the wrong message for America. But I wanted to ask you about the boat situation when they blew up the boats, claiming they were terrorists without proof. I mean, isn't that illegal? It's got to be illegal.
That I do believe was a violation both of domestic and international law. Yes. But again, law is about power. I think it's that may be one area that you could conceivably see 3, 4, 5 years from now, some military members prosecuted, but I think it's very unlikely. And I think it's very, 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 very unlikely that any civilians in the administration ever get prosecuted for what were clearly extrajudicial murders.
Well, what about the 2 men who survived? And then someone, I think it was Pegwich, Pete what's his name? Anyway, the former Fox talk show host gave the order to shoot them. That's murder.
Oh yeah, Pete Hegseth is his name, and he has ordered multiple murders, including those.
Yeah.
Those were all extrajudicial murders. I think all of the bombings of the small Venezuelan boats violated both domestic and international law. I think again, law is about power, and I don't think that that's going to be prosecuted.
All right. I think I have a caller. Kofi James, what's your comment, sir?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's your question?
Yes, I understand the replication. I understand the replication of what you're doing. We understand the movement, but at the same time, they're violating God. And that's what we have to keep them accountable to stop, and people to stop following them. And that's what's creating the problem. The people that are following them, then they they profited. That's when the population, look when that woman got killed. They were following these people. That's what I want to see. It's we don't want killing. We don't want killing because they want to lead us to martial law. We understand that. The killing going to have to. But you're going to have to start following people, agitating them, which is causing the problem. Make them move around. They protected. Stop following people.
Okay.
I think that's the problem. When you follow, they're not actually, they didn't look for black people. They're after immigrants. So I'm not doing nothing. You understand what's going on. Obama removed more people than Trump did. This is an ongoing thing. Trump is intimidated, but he's doing it in an aggressive way.
Okay.
So I think we need to step down and say, hey, these protesters are immigrants.
So may I respond while you're still on the phone, Kofi? May I respond, Chinta?
Sure.
So 18% of the immigrants in Chicago, since that's where I'm at, are black. It's actually a much higher percentage of Minneapolis. They went into Minneapolis to target black immigrants, specifically Somalians. But in Chicago, 18% of the immigrant population is black from Africa or the Caribbean. And notably, the way black immigrants are treated in the immigration system is no different than the way blacks are treated in the criminal justice system. Let me give you an example. Several years ago, when we instituted a program that had the public defender representing some immigrants, although 18% of the immigrant population was black, about 45% of those that get detained without bond during deportation proceedings are black. And about 50% of the folks who are unrepresented in immigration court are black. So to try to make a distinction that say that Trump is going after immigrants, not black folks, misunderstands both what percentage of immigrants are black, which is actually a higher percentage of immigrants are black than the percentage of citizens in this country are black, and misunderstands that the disproportionate impact on black folks that occurs in the criminal justice system is no different in the immigration enforcement system than it is in the regular criminal justice system. It ignores the fact that
Wait, Kofi.
The key word is immigrant. Okay, they started doing all this.
So
they in that damn in Minnesota. Okay, I'm not an immigrant. I hate what they're doing to somebody. I'm not an immigrant. But they come here and understand that healthcare system in Minnesota. I didn't do that. That's what they do. They come here to manipulate and money.
I can't understand what you're saying, sir. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I said they come here to scam money off the American tax dollars. And they did money. Okay?
Yeah. What you are articulating is what most white folks feel about you. And there's not a distinction made.
I'm not an immigrant. I'm an indigenous. I'm an indigenous of America. So I'm at peace. Not fight.
What is your Kofi? What is your opinion of Donald Trump? Is he doing a good job?
At first, he was.
What?
At first, he was.
Okay. What?
He's doing a good job. But he's bringing war, and he uses power, particularly the land. He's a colonizer, and you get that power. Now he wants to become a colonizer. So all I'm asking him is give us land, give us and give the people land. You doing what you're doing. He, they were going to say he changed.
So are you in favor of his erasing Black history?
Black history was false. We not
What?
Black history is not from Africa. Our Black history, if we've been here for thousands of years, pyramids in America. There's go before slavery. There's pyramids in America. We're a pharaoh in America.
How do you feel about his erasing Black history and banning books?
Do that because it's wrong.
Okay, Kofi, thank you so much.
I kind of agree with that, and so now we can write books on us being here, being indigenous.
All right.
That falsehood.
All right. Thank you so much for calling, Kofi. All right. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more of On the Case and Attorney Brendan Shiller right after this.
brother, in which we're doing this documentary for Douglas Robinson, your death will not be in vain.
He was a heck of a great dude.
And I love Doug. Doug loved me.
Just being around him, he had a good spirit. He was a healing person.
They are there.
Get SROs back.
When you give to the poor,
should not be forced out of their neighborhoods when it goes through a period of transformation.
Because there are too many people who are losing their homes to taxes because they can't pay a $1,000 tax bill.
We're back. I'm Chinta Strasberg, producer and host of On the Case, and my special guest is attorney Brendan Shiller. Hey, Speaking of homelessness, HUD officials have always said to get rid of homelessness in America, it only takes $20 billion. Yet, Trump gave, what was the name of that president he gave $40 billion to?
The Argentinian president. I don't remember his name, but the president from Argentina.
So how do you feel about that? He attacks he had the homeless arrested in Washington D.C. because they messed up his how do you say, his image when he brought his friends to D.C. and they were sleeping in the parks and everything.
Yeah, I'm not confident we really know what the solution is to homelessness, and I am confident there's enough resources if it was directed and we knew what the solution was. But I was the editor of Streetwise 30 years ago, and we thought we knew some solutions then. We know that providing housing and doing so in a way that isn't means tested, without a lot of support, can greatly reduce some of the homelessness if we just provided a bunch more housing. But we also know that there's a certain portion of the population that really does need a lot of support, and that there's just a mental health epidemic as much as there is anything else. And we've never, which was really clearly exacerbated by COVID, and we have not figured out how to deal with the mental health epidemic in this country. So we have a housing epidemic, a housing problem, a housing shortage, and a mental health epidemic that are layered over the homeless issue. And I don't think we really still have a full grasp on that. So I don't know if it's 20 million. I don't know if it's 40 million. I don't know if it's 100 million. I don't know if we really know how best to craft the solutions. But we clearly have enough resources if we could figure out how to craft the solutions, and if we had the will and desire to put those resources to it. Right now, Trump is playing with tens of trillions of dollars of debt. So 40 billion, if we take the opportunity to recognize that debt is not the boogeyman that it's been made out to be. Don't get me wrong, 40 trillion in debt is a whole lot, but debt is not the boogeyman it's made out to be, that we are using both time and space, time going forward in the future, and space being the hundreds of millions of people in this country, but also the billions of people abroad. And that there's a way to utilize debt using time and space if we want to accomplish the things we want to accomplish. And we just got to do the mirror of what Trump is doing. He's taking trillions of dollars and accomplishing the things he wants to accomplish.
Well, to me, it's a matter of priorities, because he had a priority to give the one percenters $4.7 trillion tax break at the expense of you and me.
Accurate.
How do you feel about that?
That's accurate.
It's not right. And
no, it's kind of his mandate.
I'm sorry?
No, but it's not a surprise.
What is a surprise is that the Republicans went along with it knowing that it's going to become a campaign issue, and the midterms are right around the corner.
Yeah, but they do what they believe in. Which is a little bit more than you can say for the Democrats.
What do you mean?
Who do what they think other people believe in.
Well, I don't know. Explain that. I'm sorry.
Republicans do what they believe in, regardless of what the polls or the political ramifications may be.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats do what they think the polls want them to do, or direct them to do.
Okay.
Republicans do what they believe in. It doesn't matter what the political ramifications may be.
All right. So what do you think about his big, beautiful bill?
That accomplished what they believed in. That was a redistribution of wealth from lower classes to upper classes. And that is an consistent ideological objective of Republicans for my entire life.
Okay. And so, how can we make the shift between what's happening now to get rid of this evilness that's emanating from the White House? What can we do?
Yeah, I think you just keep doing the work that you're doing, having the conversations, engaging people, and hoping that there's a sufficient amount of power built that pushes back against it.
Okay. And then I wanted to get your reaction to the shooting by this ICE agent of Renee Good. How do you feel about that happen? And do you think that he'll ever be prosecuted for murder?
I doubt that he gets prosecuted for murder, although there's a slight chance. I think it's pretty clear that it was excessive force. I think it's pretty clear it's a murder. I think it's pretty clear it's not justified. Civil rights law, there's this distinction made between federal actors and state actors. It's my friend Antonio Romanucci. I see he's the one who got this case on the civil end. One of the distinctions is you don't get attorney's fees, so there's a greater risk with taking this case. But the rules are all the same. The question is, would a reasonable person standing in the officer's shoes reasonably believe that they were in danger when he took the first shot, when he took the second shot, and when he took the third shot? And given that the second and third shot came when he was standing, basically leaning into her window, I find it hard to believe any jury would find in his favor. There was a case that the now deceased, I think probably one of your friends, Stan Willis, and I had back in 2010, 2011, that was very similar. And it was a case we won. And in that case, the kid that we represented had a gun and had drugs on him, but he was driving in a car and driving away, and he was shot. He wasn't killed. He was just shot. I think it's pretty clearly a civil rights violation. It's pretty clearly murder, a criminal violation. I think Romanucci 4 or 5 years from now will eventually get some type of federal civil judgment for Renee Good. I think it's unlikely this case ever gets prosecuted, but because I think there'll be so many things that'll happen over the next 3 years that a Democratic administration that comes in 2028 will have to pick and choose and be judicious in what it chooses to go after and prosecute. And I'm not sure this will make the list.
It's pretty sad. So what can we do to, in the interim, for people who are tired of all of this? And by the way, I wanted to know your reaction to Kristi Noem and the movement to have her impeached. Do you think she should be impeached?
Oh, I think most of his cabinet is probably impeachable. I don't know if that accomplishes anything, and I don't think you're going to get the votes for that right now. So that's my reaction.
Okay, so what can we do as citizens, the ones who don't like what's happening? What can we do?
So this is about building power, right? And building power includes talking to friends and neighbors and family. Building power includes, keeping track of what activists and organizers are doing and plugging in where you can. And there's a lot going on, and helping to create momentum that allows folks with ways and means and leverage to do certain things, whether that's in the courts or in various halls of legislative and policy, or creating the moral distinctions necessary to maybe have some law enforcement officers come on the right side when contradictions occur. I mean, I was, not surprised or disappointed, but I disliked when the police superintendent essentially took the side of ICE in the days following the shooting of Renee Good. He didn't have to. But whether or not, it's his natural cultural affinity to do so, so I understand why he did. But that is something that can be impacted by folks just talking to folks because he's of the community, right?
Yeah, we're out of time. Attorney, I'm sorry, Brendan Shiller, I'm so glad that you were on the case, and give my love to your mom, an awesome former alderman, I think of the 46th ward, right?
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the case.
Thank you.
See you next Friday.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jaref. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.